We're doing something a little different today on Laguna Woods Stories. We are telling the story of Laguna Woods. And to help us do that, we are here in the Laguna Woods History Center talking to the CEO of that organization. This is Dean Dixon. Welcome, Dean.
Thank you for coming to visit us.
I'm going to say, I guess you could say welcome to me because I'm the one who's not in my usual territory.
Well, welcome, and thank you for doing your show here. We're excited to have you, especially since the name of your show is Laguna Woods Stories, and this is a repository of stories that you have come to visit.
Mm. And the story of Laguna Woods itself is a most interesting one, and that is your charge here at the History Center of preserving all of that information that it keeps alive the memories of the history of this area.
That's absolutely correct. In fact, when we talk about local history, we're talking about locale history. Locale in this case predates the use of the term Laguna Woods,
right,
but it is still part of the purview of our organization to be looking at long-term history. On the wall over here we have 15,000 years of human history, a timeline that covers a lot of things that we share with other places, but a lot of things that we don't.
And so some of the earliest history, we don't have written records of it because the inhabitants didn't have writing at that time.
The written history actually comes with the claiming of California by Cabrillo from the ocean, and then the exploration in our area came by the Portola group that came through and established the missions and set in El Camino Real.
Okay.
And so that's the earliest history that we have that's written, but it's in our area. The American Indians that were here first were divided by Aliso Creek. And Aliso Creek is significant in all of the running history because the creek is spring-fed, and as a result there's fresh water available all the time. So
really?
Our 450-year-old tree that is down there is there because it had water year-round. The rest of this was all grassland.
Was that the source of water for the Indians living here? And
it was.
And the early ranchers and all of that?
The earliest ranchers were the Mexican land grants that came to the Avila family and the Serrano family were directly related to Aliso Creek. And they both had ranchos or adobes on the creek itself. So, and the creek is significant because the Acaqueman people who were south of the creek had a village called Nahuil, and Nahuil is the village that the Spanish corrupted into Nehuel. Nehuel is their pronunciation of what we corrupt into Niguel. So there were some phases of that.
So the Niguel name actually goes back to the Indians.
To the Indians, to the Acaqueman. On the north side of Aliso Creek, the Tongva people went all the way to Los Angeles. Actually, the Acaqueman went all the way to San Diego.
And this creek that runs through our community was the division between those two kind of Indian nations.
That's right.
Well, that's
exactly right.
Significant. I had no idea when I walked my dog along the creek that,
that's right.
that I was in such a historic area.
That's right. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So obviously there are rich history that we have here. But let's zoom in a little bit on the history of this organization that's here to maintain the history of the area.
That's right.
How did the History Center get started?
Well, the History Center itself, and that we are legally a California Domestic Nonprofit Corporation, qualifying as an educational charity under IRS Regulation 501c3. So we incorporated in 1977 as the Leisure World Historical Society of Laguna Hills. Came into existence because of governance documents, and it's probably good to mention that the importance of this community is related to how it changed the world, and I mean literally the world, in regards to retirement communities.
Really?
Our connection to the study of gerontology and the creation of the first gerontology college in the United States is directly related to Ross Cortese, Rossmore Corporation, and the University of Southern California.
I had no idea.
And so we have people that come here to do research because this was the game changer. Prior to this, retirement communities were basically housing developments that had age restrictions on them. And I can remember as a kid going to one in Arizona, and I couldn't figure out what the difference was. Well, there wasn't any difference. And that's why this was a game changer. The last group that came through that used, we have our own internal computer network, and the last group that came through and actually used it extensively were from Denmark and wrote an extensive book about these kinds of places all over the world.
Now we're going to take a little walkabout here in the History Center in a little while and kind of see what you have and learn a little bit more about what you do. But just
well, we actually built this building in 1997, and it is Orange County's only purpose-built archive for local history. And the process that took place to have it be purpose-built was basically we accepted the financial donations, we hired the architect, and we worked with them on the design. So this was intended from the very beginning to function as it functions today as an archive. As an archive.
And how has this been, how is this supported, and how has it been supported? Has it all been donations?
Everything is donations. We have no paid staff. We're amateurs running a professional organization, actually. There's no money in local history, so the professionals tend to avoid us, and we do have professional consultants that we bring in for a variety of things, but beyond that...
Make sure you're doing everything right.
Yeah, and current. The processes change, as you'll probably hear when we
it's interesting to think of current and history in the same breath.
Well,
the preservation of history has changed a lot, I presume.
That's the problem, and even in your own area, you and I have talked about tapes and what do we do with tapes and how do we move that into a digitized form to be able to preserve that.
The tapes are, all those videotapes that we used to have are dying. The film slides that we once took, or especially the color prints, are dying, and if they're not brought into some other medium, they're going to be gone.
And it's one of the big issues with organizations like ours. When do you do that migration? At what point have we reached a technology that is going to be the stepping off point for the next technologies? And in our case, we have the problem that we're all volunteers. So,
yeah, we don't know how long DVDs will last or any of those things.
No, the people that sell us the archival ones say 300 years. 300 years haven't passed since we got DVDs, so I don't know how they get to that point.
That's right. That's an estimate, and we hope they're right, but we don't know that they're right. That's it. And they don't know that they're right.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how you personally have gotten involved. What were you involved in some aspect of historical records and that sort of thing as a career?
No. This is an avocation, not a vocation, and it has run parallel to my professional careers. But my wife and I, Gail and I, have been doing this for over 40 years now.
Really?
In local history. And again, it's where the volunteers need to be because the professionals aren't going to find enough money to support themselves.
Now, what sparked that interest in history in you?
I would say that my maternal grandmother's involvement of me when I was 13 years old in doing a family history.
Okay.
I'm a member of the Sons of the American Revolution, and those connections had raised an awareness in me, and I can't say that I liked history as a subject in school, but I find local history much more relatable because we're talking about the stories of people that lived where I live now.
Always amazed me that history teachers could find a way to make something that's intrinsically most interesting and make it dull.
Yeah, well, as long as we teach it based on events and dates,
Right.
we've got a problem.
That's exactly the problem, isn't it? So we're going to take a little walkabout. We're going to talk to some of your other co-workers here and just learn a little bit more about what you do and why and all of that. So
We're thrilled to have you and look forward to doing that.
thank you. Our next guest is Barbara Letter, and your card, Barbara, says that you are a digital archivist. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
And what does a digital archivist do?
Okay, I'm a digital archivist here at the History Center, the
Okay.
Laguna Woods History Center. And the job I predominantly do is converting old files, such as newspapers, slides, into a digital format to preserve it for all eternity,
Okay.
or as long as that format lasts anyway.
Right.
And the biggest project I've had, and the reason I started here, was because we have 40 years of newspapers, the actual paper newspapers in the
Wow.
back storage room.
Wow.
And they're starting to deteriorate. Of course, they start from 1965 and go through 2006.
Wow.
After 2006, we're connected with the OC Register,
Uh-huh.
and they send it out to us in a digital format after 2006. So
you
we don't
didn't
have to worry.
Didn't have to digitize those
No.
because they were already
No,
digitized.
just the ones that we have the paper copies of, and they do not have,
Okay.
online. So we have a big scanner in the back, and we put the newspaper on it, and the machine does most of it, of course. But it does bring it over in a digital format, and it allows us to search the newspapers.
All right.
And that's a function that I can offer anybody in the village that's interested in going back. They would have to know the year. We are limited by the year of what we search for.
So if they knew that a certain person lived here in a certain year, you can search that name
Yes, I can.
and see if there's any articles
That's
about
correct.
them.
That's correct.
And-
And then we can always print that page for them, on the printer we have here. So
Now, what about other media? Do you also digitize photographs and videotapes and things?
yes, a lot of the photographs are already digitized. Then the other project I started on was digitizing slides. Now we still have all kinds of cassettes back there that need to be done. And
Video and audio?
Yes, yeah.
wow.
We haven't even started that, so
Now-
that's going to be a
now,
big job.
I think Dean said that you are all volunteers,
That's correct.
and so could you use some more volunteer help in doing some of this?
Oh, sure, we can always use use volunteer help.
Silly question, right?
Yeah, right. But they would have to have some computer skills.
Okay.
That's, of course, in this day and age, it helps to have the computer
Now,
skills.
how did you get into this part of your life of being a digital archivist?
I moved here 7 years ago
Okay.
from the Chicago area. And my job at that time was I was self-employed as a doing documentation and training for computer software systems.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was used to working on computers.
Uh-huh.
And then documenting everything, user guides, job aids, things like that. So when I saw the ad in the paper that they wanted somebody to help scan, I thought, well, I know how to work a
can do
scanner.
that.
Yeah. So I came in, and I wanted to volunteer for something.
But you, having been through a lot of these old newspapers, were there some surprises in there?
One of the reasons I love doing it is because of the prices of groceries,
Oh.
the interest rates at the bank. Because this goes back to starting in 1965,
Wow.
and it's just amazing what the prices were, you know. And then once in a while I'd get so busy, because you have to keep doing this continuously. You can't stop or the machine doesn't do what it's supposed to do. But I'd be so busy reading an article, I'd get screwed up and I'd have to start that issue all over again. But I did enjoy, you know, all these, reading about all these things. And history interests me, and being a new resident of Southern California at that time, I enjoy seeing all the articles, what Laguna, well, with Leisure World at that time, you know, how they first set things up, and even the pictures of the area, you know, where there wasn't wall-to-wall houses and 16 lanes of freeways.
Right.
You know, even that I found interesting to look at.
And as I understand it, all the trees that we see here have been planted. This was not a forest.
No,
originally.
and we have pictures. You know, it was a ranch, and there were no trees on it.
Except right along the creek, I guess.
Right, along the creek there was. But we do have quite a few pictures of when they first started building here, and not many trees around at all. So that's kind of interesting.
For sharing with us.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
This is Barbara Letter.
Correct.
Well, our next guest is Gail Dixon, and Gail, the last name seems familiar.
Yes.
And because you are the wife of the CEO.
Correct.
And your card says you're the Chief Administrative Officer.
Means I can tell him what to do, but he won't listen.
So, what's your role here?
Actually, it's a little bit of everything. Sometimes we're here by ourselves where we don't have a lot of volunteers, and so we jump in and do whatever we need to, answer the phones, greet people when they come in to visit, help them do research, and then we do research on our own for people so that they can get answers to some of the questions that they have. And then recently I took an online class through the Association of State and Local History that we are a member of. I took an Archives 101 class, which brought me back to understanding more of the archival quality that's needed in taking care of preserving history forever.
Talk to us a little bit about what's required to store artifacts in a way that they don't deteriorate.
Acid in most old papers and in newspapers and a lot of the storage boxes, our bankers' boxes and hanging files and all of that, if they're not archival quality, they can actually eat the historic records that they're supposed to be. So that was a good thing to learn.
So if you have important papers that are on acidic paper, what do you do?
Well, you can make a copy of them on acid-free paper,
I see.
and then keep the copy, and that's what's recommended.
You enjoy your work here, I take it?
I love it. I love it. I get to interact with a lot of people because we also have a club storage program in the archives.
Tell us about that.
Okay. Clubs and organizations in the village, and actually we have some items from the city too, and some special collections, including Ross Cortese's items. And but for the club storage, we charge $50 a year, and clubs and organizations, we have churches and so forth, who can store their historic papers, their minutes, etc., in our archives, which are temperature and humidity controlled. The ideal temperature for archives is 70 degrees with a humidity of 30 to 50 degrees, percent, I mean, 30 to 50% humidity. And that keeps the papers from getting moldy or too hot or what have you. The club storage is really important for the community and for the clubs themselves, because instead of items being stored in the president's closet or what have you, they're all in one place, and any of their members can come in and look at them. And
the presidents typically change every year or every few years, depending, and so the artifacts don't necessarily move with the changing of the guard, and so they get lost.
Exactly. So that's been really one of our mainstays for the entire organization, is housing all of the club materials. It's been
Now, your organization is supported by donations, as I
Correct,
understand it.
correct.
There's not supported through our dues or
correct. It's not affiliated at all with GRF, except for the fact that we gave the building to GRF after it was built back in 1997. But we are operating completely on donations and endowments. And a person could write us into their will if they would like. We've had that happen a few times, which is one of the ways we've been able to sustain our existence without income from GRF or the members' dues.
And so when people come in and want to learn about their history of their ancestor who may have lived here or
Yes.
whatever it is, you do that for free, is
We
that right?
sure do. And one of the things that I usually would start with would be to take them back into the archives and go to our library section there that has the telephone books from way back to 1965. And that way they can see what the address was if maybe they don't have it. And then we can go from there and look up other information on them. It's really fun to do that.
Back in the days when people were listed in telephone books.
Yes, isn't that the truth? Right, right. Yeah. And then we had an Honoree of the Month program years back where their ancestor may have very well been honored if they were heavily involved in the community, and then they might even learn more about that person than they knew to begin with.
Well, you folks provide a wonderful service for free, and but you're glad to accept donations from anybody interested.
Yes, and we do have a business partnership where we ask businesses if they would like to be part of our annual partnership, and I believe that Catherine's going to talk to you more about that after a bit.
Okay, great. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
We're still at the Laguna Woods History Center, and this time we're talking to the Chief Communication Officer. This is Catherine Bryans.
Good morning.
Good morning. And what does the Communication Officer of this organization do, Catherine?
Well, Dean likes to call me the talking head because I'll talk about anything most often, and anybody who knows me in the community knows that to be true.
Right. And so you are, your job is to let people know about what you have going on here at the History Center, one of the best kept secrets that you're trying to make sure is not a secret anymore.
I just felt as though shame on us. If they don't know who we are, it's because we haven't told anybody.
Right.
So the next few years have been my mission after that to get us better known in the community, because we do a lot. We bring a lot of value to this community. And you may not look at us necessarily as needing information from us, but it's also a great place to research, come find out about things, not just about Laguna Woods Village, but what was here prior to that, the Moulton Ranch, the Avalas, all sorts of interesting information that were here prior to us. But getting the word out and explaining that, well, for instance, docent tours take place every month, 4 of them a month at this time.
And docent tours of the facility
village.
here.
Yes,
Oh, the village.
Of the village. So the docent tours come here to this building to see the diorama and gather information. And it gives them an overview of the community. Well, initially, this diorama was thought up and brought forward by the then Historical Society.
Now talk to us just a moment about the diorama. I understand that it has every building that's here.
Correct. It has every building that's in the village except for the new clubhouses. Those aren't showing. Some of those, like the Village Green and a few others, don't show on there. But it also looks like we have fields and acres of bare land around us. It's not true. But it does give you a good overview of what this village looks like. As people drive around, they obviously know that it's not an easy place to get around in. And that's because buildings were numbered the year they were built in whatever units were going on at the time. So on my little street, there's 4 different sets of numbers, 2-digit and several 3-digit different.
Yeah.
But the diorama helps to talk about it. I'm also a docent for the community. I'm very proud of that. But also it gives me, when I'm here with my tour, it gives them sort of a complete view. And it's important because you were driving around in a bus and you're seeing acres and acres and acres of buildings and landscaping, but you're not knowing where you are. So they get a good chance to see where it is.
So you get kind of a bird's eye view.
You get a bird's eye view
of the whole place at
Right.
one time.
The value to the community is really quite great. It not only has helped a lot of the new employees coming in, because I made myself very clear when we changed over management that they would come here to the center and have one of their staff meetings so all the new staff could find out who we are. They didn't know that they could use this resource as well.
Right.
So
If somebody wanted to make a donation to the Historical Society, History Center, actually, it is
Yes.
now, isn't it?
correct.
The History Center, so the check should be made to History Center, or
And we
Laguna
also-
Woods History
yes,
Center.
But we also take credit cards, so you can go on our website, which is lagunawoodshistory.org, and there is an opportunity there. You could donate by that, or you can just come in or send us a note, anything you want to do, or email us at info@lagunawoodshistory.org.
And the History Center is a 501c3
It is.
nonprofit organization, which means that if you are in the tax bracket where it matters,
Correct.
then you can deduct this from your income for income tax purposes.
And if we have some history teachers or anyone that are in the community and they feel as though, when they're doing their estate planning, if they would like to include us, we'd be happy to.
Well, it's a very interesting place to visit and just walk around, see that giant diorama, and so we would encourage people, if you're not familiar with the History Center, check it out. Thank you for coming on, Catherine Bryans,
My
the
pleasure.
Chief Communications Officer, and you communicate very well.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.